The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, Marshall Redick investors, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for our presentation on solutions to help avoid foreclosure. No, it's not a topic that excites most people, but hopefully if you find yourself in that position, the presentation tonight and the information presented will help you try to prevent these things from happening. My name is Kristen Tabar. I am a realtor and real estate advisor here with Marshall Redick Real Estate, and it is my pleasure to be hosting tonight's webinar with our very own Linda Robinson. So before we jump into the main event, I'm going to walk through a little bit about who Marshall Redick is, what kind of services we provide, and then we will go ahead and jump right into the meat and potatoes of tonight, if you will. So I'm going to have Linda changing some slides for me as we go along here. And Linda, if you wouldn't mind, please. Thank you very much. All right, so who is Marshall Redick Real Estate? We are a real estate broker here in California. Our office is down here in Newport Beach, but we service our California buyers up in the Bay Area all the way down to San Diego. And we're helping folks purchase primary residences and rentals here in the beautiful state of California and across the nation with our teams in our 16 other markets. We are also a private money lender. There's lots of folks out there who are maxed out on the number of conventional loans they can attain. They're looking to finance properties out of their retirement accounts. And in order to do that, you need a private money loan. So we also provide that service for our borrowers. We also let investors who want to invest in those mortgages and trust deeds do that as well. And finally, we are a property manager here in California, and we manage our renters, we manage our investors' rental property from Orange County all the way up to LA. Linda, next slide. Thank you. All right, so now you know who Marshall Redick is. What do we do and how does this benefit you? Well, number one, you're here tonight. We offer free educational courses so that as an investor you can obtain all the information that you need to make a great investment decision. We back that up with free consulting from licensed individuals such as myself and really walk through what your investment criteria is and help you to decide which market, which type of property are going to be the best to get you to your goals. We analyze all the property for you, walk through the financials, and as part of our team, we work with accountants, CPAs, lenders, short sale specialists such as Linda Robinson, who you'll hear from tonight. And all of those services are offered to our investors at no charge to you so that you can really utilize our team in a way that helps you to start or expand your real estate portfolio. Linda, next slide, please. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, my name is Kristen Tabar. This is me. A little bit about me. I am licensed here in California, so I work with local buyers and sellers as well as investors across the nation. I myself am an investor. I own property in 4 of our rental markets, Arizona, Indiana, Tennessee, and Florida. Always happy to share my experience with all of you. Give me a call and let's chat anytime. I graduated Cal State Long Beach a couple of years ago. My degree is an expensive piece of paper that hangs on my wall, has nothing to do with real estate, but I think education is important. So glad that I went to school there, great campus, really loved it. And now I'm happily employed at Marshall Redick Real Estate. I've been married for 2 years, and my husband and I have the most adorable little marshmallow 1.5-year-old named Justin, and I'm really enjoying nowadays chasing him around as he's keeping me busy, starting to run. Anyways, that's a little bit about me. Like I mentioned, I am an advisor, so I am here to help you guys work out your investment plan, figure out what's going to be the best avenue for you and help you get in contact with Linda if that's the current situation you find yourselves in. Next slide, please, Linda. All right, so we're going to get tonight kicked off with a little bit of viewer participation. We're going to do a quick poll here. The answers are completely anonymous, so don't worry about your answer showing up on a billboard on the 405 freeway. Not going to happen. What we're going to do is just get an idea for why everyone has joined us tonight and how we can help. So take a few seconds here. Our first poll question, what are you most interested in? And you have a couple options here: loss mitigation, short sales, deed in lieu, loan modification, or refinance options. As I mentioned before, completely anonymous. No other attendees will see your answers. This is just for us so we know what the best way to help you is and why you've decided to join us tonight. So I'll give you a couple more seconds here. I will spare you any kind of singing the Jeopardy tune. I don't want anyone to go deaf on my webinar. But all right, here, let's give everybody just a couple more seconds. All you folks who didn't think you'd have to participate tonight, surprise. All right, looks like we've got just about everybody in 3, 2, 1. All right, so now, really cool thing here, we get to share, like I said, they are anonymous, but we get to share what everybody's thoughts here are. So looks like 80% of our viewers are here to learn about short sales. Excellent. And it was a tie for second place for a deed in lieu and a refinance option. So guys, you are in the right place tonight if this is something that you are finding yourself in a position of short selling a property, if you're in danger of going into foreclosure. You know, if you are in that unfortunate position where your property is underwater, your loan amount and the value are almost the same. We are so glad you joined us tonight. Linda Robinson is an expert in this field. This is her specialty. She's helped thousands of Marshall Redick clients over the past 10 years that we've been working with her, and she is happy to help you if you need that kind of assistance. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Ms. Linda Robinson.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I certainly appreciate being here with you all. I'm also a Marshall Redick investor, and I've been with Marshall Redick for, 10 years now. And I bought, in my heyday, I actually bought 14 properties, and I thought that that was so wonderful, and it was really my intention to retire on these buy and hold properties, you know, or at some point maybe selling them for a major payday, and that this was just going to be my solution to retirement. And what I found out was, like most of us, the market tanked, and my 14 properties that I had were now problematic, and my income producing assets were ending up costing me money. And retirement was nowhere in my future. And it's funny now, but at the time it cost me a lot of sleepless nights. I don't know how many of you can relate to that, but I'd wake up in the middle of the night in a panic, wake my husband up, and just go, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So I tried doing some loan modifications, and that was great. I mean, one property that I had in Cape Coral, so let me back up a little. My first property was in Cape Coral, and in 1 year, I bought that property for $136,000. I mean, unbelievable coming from San Diego, right, and being a San Diego realtor. $136,000 on a new build in Florida, 4 bedrooms, a lanai, and a tenant. Oh my God, this was heaven. And in 1 year, that property more than doubled. So my $136,000 investment was now worth $270,000. And so what did I do? I refinanced, I pulled out money, and I bought 5 more. And I was just flying high. It was so exciting. The second property that I bought was in Lakeland, Florida. And that one was a bit of a slower earner, and it took 2 years to double. And so I said, this is just astounding. This is wonderful. So I again refinanced, pulled out some more money, and bought more. And this really seemed like a dream come true. Then when everything went wrong, and I started having to figure out what to do with these properties, because I had interest-only loans on them. I had variable rate mortgages on them. They all of a sudden weren't worth anywhere near. In fact, at that point, they were probably worth maybe if 50% of what I paid for it. And it didn't really look like it was going to rebound anytime soon. And so I went ahead and I refinanced my property in Cape Coral, even though it was upside down, but I did have a tenant. And so that was fabulous. And I refinanced, and I thought that it was just so wonderful because I was able to get, well, I did a loan modification, not a refinance. And I thought it was so wonderful I was able to get 3% loan. 3% 30-year fixed loan on investment property. Now, how wonderful is that? Well, 6 months later, the tenant thrashed the place, plus the wonderful city of Cape Coral decided they were no longer going to use septic systems, and that they were going to put in a whole sewer system, and that every owner in that area needed to pay, I forget how much it was about $20,000. And, you know, you could finance it over years, but you had to pay about $20,000 to get city sewer system in. So I lost my tenant. They thrashed the place to the tune of $12,000, and it was going to cost me like $20,000 for a sewer system. So now my property was worth half of what it was, half of what it's mortgaged at, and it was going to cost me another $3,500 or so to continue to rent this place that I was never going to recoup the money I already put into it. Now that is the meaning of throwing good money after bad. If you looked in a dictionary, it would say that is the meaning of throwing good money after bad. So I figured, okay, I spent all this time doing a loan mod, but I really have to short sale this property and really have to get rid of it. And so that was my first short sale. And then, you know, long story short, one after the other, I had tenants leave, having to get them rent ready again, and then taking a look at the business decision as to how much money I was going to have to put out, and then how much I was going to have to recoup at some point in order to break even, much less ever make money on those properties. And we'll go through some examples in a bit, but, you know, I ended up short selling 11 out of my 14 properties. One of them was a deed in lieu, so it was actually 10 out of my 14 properties, and then one was a deed in lieu. You know, my property in Lehigh Acres, I bought it at $146,000, and it was actually a negative. This property I wasn't even supposed to be taking possession of because it was supposed to be a construction loan, and it was supposed to get flipped before I even took possession of it. And that's exactly when the market tanked, and it didn't have enough value to flip it, and so I had to get a permanent loan on it. It ended up being $1,400 in the negative each month. $1,400 negative each month on a property that was, get this, when I sold this property at a short sale, the person who bought it paid $35,000. Drum roll, please. You know, $35,000 that they paid for my property that I paid a year earlier $146,000 for. They got a one-year new property for $35,000 with a tenant in there paying $750 a month. Now, I'd say that that was a pretty good cash flow deal on their part, but me holding it was certainly not a good deal. So anyway, that's a little bit about my story, and needless to say, I can certainly empathize, and I treat both my clients just as if you were me. You know, it's like I hold your hand, and I really, really want to help you be able to sleep at night, because I can certainly relate to all of the stress that goes on with these challenges. So what is loss mitigation? Well, the lenders will look at it, that term, and they'll say mitigating their loss. You know, how can they mitigate their loss? Because the property's upside down, and they know that they're going to have to take a bit of a loss on it. So how can they mitigate their loss? I look at that term and I say, how can I mitigate your loss? How can I make sure that you don't have any cash contributions or or promissory notes or out-of-pocket expenses or closing costs or anything that you're not counting on? And so I want to make sure to mitigate your loss. So here are the different options. Well, loan modification. That's a process where the terms of the mortgage are modified outside the original terms of the contract agreed to by the lender and the borrower. So it's really a renegotiation of the contract, right? And you either have an interest only, or you have a rate that isn't palatable for you, that isn't workable, and somehow we can work it out to have them agree to drop that rate, or to give you a 30-year fixed, or something that's going to be more workable for you to be able to keep the property. And we'll talk more about that. The next thing is a short sale. Well, a short sale is when you're upside down. Generally, with the loan modification, you're upside down also. And so with a short sale, you're also upside down. And it's when the seller strikes a deal with their lender, or I strike a deal for you with the lender to accept less than the lender owes on the property in exchange for avoiding foreclosure. Because truthfully, they don't really want to foreclose. They're not in the business of owning property. They're in the business of cash. And so they'd rather have the cash. And so we'll go on to the next one in a minute, but, you know, looking at making a business decision, you know, everyone's in a different position in life. You might have a fixed income, you might lose a job, you might have some other hardship, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in need. Like, you know, we were paying out, actually, it came to about $5,000 a month. At the time when I had those 14 properties, we were paying out $5,000 a month. But my husband had a good job. I was doing well with real estate. And it didn't really occur to me to even do anything else about it. It just seemed like, oh my God, this is what I have to do. You know, hopefully it's going to turn around. Hopefully it's going to turn around. And then my husband lost his job. He was in construction, and he lost his job, and he was 62 years old. He was not getting hired again, so he was forced into retirement. That changed our situation dramatically. $5,000 a month, $50,000, $60,000 a year for our income-producing properties. I mean, there's something wrong with that picture. And then when he lost his job, it was just not possible anymore to even do that. So that's when I really took a hard look at what I had to do about it. So if you're looking at a short sale, you know, a short sale, if your home, the current market value is $294,000, and the loan on the home is $372,000. The difference is $78,000. You figure, oh, for sure, a short sale. I mean, that seems to be, you know, certainly not going to be paying $78,000 out of pocket plus your closing costs in order to sell that property, to unload it. And so you'd figure, well, that's a no-brainer. But if the CMA is $294,000, and let's say you only owe $303,000, the difference is only $9,000, and you say, okay, you know, maybe I'll just get rid of that and not have to worry about my credit or, you know, doing some sort of short sale. But then you have to add the closing costs on top of that if you're paying it. See, if it's a short sale, the bank is going to pay it. I'm going to get the bank to pay the closing costs. But if it's not a short sale, you have to come out of pocket for the closing costs also. So it's not just $9,000. You're looking at probably about $29,000. And that still makes it ridiculous. It's still the good money after bad. And then if we're looking at your credit, like, okay, you know, this is going to impact your credit, and we'll talk more about that, but how much is having your credit costing you? I was paying $60,000 a year, folks, you know, to keep my credit. You know, you got to stop and evaluate how far underwater is your property. And if you don't know the market value, ask me or Christine, someone at Marshall Redick, to do it for you, and we can run a CMA for you. Comparative market analysis, and tell you how much your property is worth. Okay, the other loss mitigation option is a deed in lieu. The deed in lieu is where the seller, or I for it on your behalf, strikes a deal with the lender to accept the property back and thereby avoid foreclosure. It sounds very simple. It's not. It still takes a lot of paperwork and a lot of negotiations. The lender has to be okay with it. And generally, you need to have the property on the market for a few months and have it not really have a viable seller, viable buyer. And then we could work out a deal with the lender to take the property back. And we'll go through all of these a little bit more in detail now. So first you're asking yourself, do you want to keep the house? Now that's really the wrong question. It's really, is it the right business decision to keep the house or not? Because we get attached to this thing. I mean, I'll tell you, it's like all of that money that I put out, it was sickening emotionally. It was so difficult for me to really bite the bullet and realize that this was not going to be my retirement plan. That I was really not going to recoup any of those down payments that I put into those houses, that it really was not going to turn around. That all hope was gone, you know. So it's not do you want to keep the house, it's looking at it as a business investment and a business decision. So is it a primary residence or an investment? If it's a primary residence, then yes, of course, more emotional stuff needs to be considered. Who's your lender? Who's the investor who owns your note? Because your lender is generally just the servicer. They don't own your note. And does your lender or your investor do even loan mods on investment properties? Is there a refinance option? Can you possibly get into the HARP program and do a refinance? And then we have to look at your financial circumstances. You know, if you're going to keep a property that's underwater, can you afford the repairs, the vacancies, the negative cash flow? You know, one of my properties It was actually my best property. It was up in Cheney, Washington. And it was doing great for 3 years. Every year, every month, month in and month out, it would be about a $400 positive. And then 3 years out, we lost the tenant. 6 months later, they still couldn't get a new tenant. Then at that point, when there was still all the repairs to be done, and the property wasn't like totally underwater, but it was still, you know, $30,000 underwater. And I couldn't get another tenant, and I'd been paying the mortgage for 6 months out of my pocket. I figured, you know, enough is enough. And so, you know, I decided I had to get rid of that property too. Is the property in an area? You have to look at the property and the area. Are you upside down? Will it rebound? What's the vacancy rate? Do you have a verifiable financial hardship? Now, this is something that a lot of people take a long time to call me because they think they don't have a hardship. I'm telling you, I'm very creative, and we can put our heads together and we can find a verifiable financial hardship. The fact that you're upside down is not a hardship. But the fact that you're losing tenants, that you have repair bills, that your tax bill gone up, and anything else, we can figure out a verifiable hardship. And even like a lot of people who have making $300,000 a year or something and say, there's no way I'm going to be able to get a short sale. I make too much money. Not to worry, give me a call. We will take a look and figure it out. And then, of course, the effects on credit and taxes. And, you know, we'll go into that. The thing about your credit is it will affect your credit. But I'm telling you that after 1 year, I used a credit repair agency, and after 1 year, my credit rebounded. Now, yes, of course, I couldn't get a mortgage yet, but I did get a car loan, and I did get new credit cards, and after 1 year, I went back up to 720. So it's not the end of the world. And with taxes, I've got to tell you, I'm also not an accountant, and I cannot give you tax advice, but what I can tell you is that my accountant was also very creative, and with 11 properties that I short sold, and all of the debt forgiveness that they send you those tax forms from the lender with the debt forgiveness on it, I did not have to pay one dime of extra taxes because of the on-paper income. Okay, with a loan modification, the best success is on a primary residence. Some lenders won't even do it on investment properties, and they won't even tell you that until you spend 2 years trying to get it and keep getting denied. And yes, you have to have a financial hardship, and there's a financial worksheet that I'll go over with you, and it's generally based on 31% of your gross income. And you know, if you're in that situation, I will go through it all with you and tell you if you're in that narrow field, because it is a narrow field, that's workable for loan modifications. It really was supposed to be such a wonderful reprieve for people, and it was not what it was set out to do. It has not fulfilled. But, you know, for those people that are in that narrow field, it is wonderful. I have saved people on their primary residences $1,000 a month. You know, when it works, it's just jump up and down time. It has to be a sustainable loan to the bank. And so even though, you know, you think that it needs to be lower, the bank, we have to look at the formula of what the bank's going to accept so that it feels like it's sustainable to the bank. There's all sorts of lender forms, and I'll go through the explanation of the process with you. And then generally what happens is at the end of the process, you'll get a trial mod. And then if you make your payments for 3 months, it'll become permanent. And then we jump up and down. A short sale. Okay, you need, actually for both of those, for all of these options, you need to be behind on your mortgage payments. And so that's also very difficult for people to swallow. You know, I paid my credit was 800 and something. And I had to really bite my nails to even not make that mortgage payment. But unfortunately, that's what's needed for the lenders to realize that you actually have a hardship. Okay, then what we do is we get the property listed with a realtor in that area, or sometimes your property manager if they do listings, and we get an offer. And I work with you on the full financial and short sale package and the HUD, you know, the settlement sheet, to let the lender know how much they're actually going to net. Then the lender will do an appraisal or a BPO, a broker price opinion, which is a shortened appraisal. And they'll come up with value. And they'll determine whether the offer is high enough, or they'll counter. And then I do the negotiations with the lender. You know, they might have countered to one thing, I'll counter back, we'll go back and forth, the buyers will come up some, and then somewhere we might meet in the middle. If not, we get a new buyer, but at least at that point we know what the lender wants. And then of course I work with all of the liens, the first lien, the second lien, if there's an HOA lien, if there's a contractor lien, I work with them all. And then I work, you know, with the counter offers. And then the good news is when you get the approval. And I'm always looking, my aim is to never have a seller contribution and to not have a promissory note. 95% of the time we've been able to accomplish that. And I've done about 500 short sales. And I'd say out of all of the short sales that were given to me, I've had about 99% success rate in actually getting them completed. And the industry standard is about 40. With normal realtors getting short sales completed, across the United States, it's about 40%. And my stats are like 99%. And 95% with no contribution or promissory note, you just being able to walk away free and clear with no lender repercussions at all. Okay, the deed in lieu, the property for the most part must be listed for 90 days with no acceptable offer. For the most part, it's only if you have one loan, because if you're going to give it back to the bank, you can't have another lien on the property. Now, these days, sometimes we can work it out to actually get the first lender to pay the second lender some money, like $6,000 or something, and if the second lender will take that, and that's a negotiation on my part too. If the second lender will take the $6,000 and sign off on the release of the lien, then we could sometimes get a deed in lieu done even if you have two loans. But, you know, it's not the standard, but I've gotten it done. And of course, the investor must be willing to accept a deed in lieu. Of course, you still have to have the same verifiable hardship. You know, all financial forms and package needs to be sent in, and then I usually follow up weekly until the process is complete. And then they send an attorney package to you, and you sign it, and you give the property back to them. Then it gets recorded. Okay, I'll turn it back to you. So for poll number 2.
All right, Linda, thank you so much. Really quickly before I hop into the second poll question, I want to thank you guys so much for all of your questions. If you have questions and it's something that Linda has covered and you need a little bit more clarification, or it's something that she hasn't quite gotten to yet, go ahead and type that into your question field and you can send that over, and we have reserved some time here at the end for some Q&A. So we'll be able to get those asked and answered live here on the air tonight. And if for any reason we don't get to your questions tonight, we will follow up and make sure that everybody gets all of their questions answered tomorrow. So that having been said, we're going to dive right into our second poll question. All of you thought you were off the hook for participation. Not so much. I promise this is the last one, though, so I'm going to go ahead and launch the second question. Which action below are you considering? And we've got 4 options here. First one, selling my property soon, selling my property in a bit, thinking about selling, or don't know yet. And again, this is just so we know how we can help you when we follow up, kind of what your situation is now. Are you already thinking about selling? Is it more of a rush? Do you need to do it soon? Are you not really sure? This is just so we know how we can get the conversation started to help you guys out in your situations. Again, I promise I won't put the answers up on any billboards for public use, just for us here. And I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. I think some of you are up wandering around and listening via not sitting on your couches. We've got just about everybody's votes in. A couple more seconds here. And 3, 2, 1. Time's up. So let's see how we did. 91% by a landslide don't know yet. And that is, you guys, you're not alone. A lot of people in this situation just aren't sure what to do because they don't know what their options are. So again, great that you were able to join us tonight. We'll get those questions answered and decide what the best option is going to be for you guys. And second place here with 9% are a few folks that are thinking about selling. So again, whatever your situation is, Linda and myself here at Marshall Redick are here to help, and we will do that in any way that we can. So I will go ahead and turn it back over to you, Linda. We'll get wrapped up here and start answering some questions.
Thanks so much. Okay. Okay, so why hire me? Well, like I said, I have years of experience and a great track record. I will manage the entire process and keep it moving, which is a big deal. See, here's the thing, is that, you know, to be upfront and honest with you, you can't just have a realtor. You know, whoever you get to be the realtor can do this without having a short sale expert. However, that's exactly the point. They are not, even if they say they are, I'm telling you, they are not short sale experts. It's like realtors list properties, they take buyers around, they're out in the field, they're not sitting by their phone with all of the information that they need for lenders to be calling them day in and day out. And I'm telling you, if you try and call the lenders, most of the time you're not reaching anybody. They have to call you back. And I have direct lines to a lot of the negotiators in the major banks, but they generally have to call you back. And if you're out in the field and showing properties, you're not there to return their calls. It takes a heck of a lot longer. Okay, I'm detail-oriented. There's no surprises at closing. That's the other thing, is that I am going to look at your particular situation and tell you how to mitigate your losses. Make sure that your assets aren't going to be in danger, that other homes aren't a problem, you know, all of this stuff. I understand exactly what the lenders want, and I'll keep you informed every step of the way as well. And I'll hold your hand. I'll get you the best possible outcome. I'm service-oriented, tenacious, honest, and direct, empathetic, and I love doing this. If you can't tell, I'm totally impassioned with it. You know, I've also been called a bulldog. You know, I will fight for you, but in a respectful way with the lender. You know, I don't get into a conflictory thing with them. You know, it's always a teamwork thing. Your payment to me is due at closing, and what that payment is $3,000. It's a flat fee if you have one loan, and $3,500 if you have two. And if you don't agree to the terms of the short sale once the approval comes, then you don't owe me anything. If we don't close, then you don't owe me anything. So it's just at closing. And what I can tell you is that everybody closes. And everybody is happy. So many of my customers have told me that they don't know what they would have done without me. So here's just some testimonials. Linda, thank you for your help the past few months. Trying to short sell multiple properties in different states with numerous banks involved seemed like an overwhelming task. After hearing you speak, I decided to try your services before just letting the properties go to foreclosure. You did an amazing job working with the banks, realtors, property managers, and county employees. You made the whole process easy on my end. After my initial consultation with you and emailing you the necessary documents up front, the whole process seemed effortless, at least for me. I simply had to sign the closing docs and a large weight was lifted from my mind. The valuable service you provided is greatly appreciated, and thanks to you, I can sleep easier at night. So that's really a very normal response from clients. Here's another one. You can just read that. Well, I'll read it. Okay, hi Linda. Just wanted to thank you and your husband Alex for the expertise that provided in the handling of our Arizona short sale. The transaction was completed within 2 to 3 months' time and took a burden of debt off our shoulders. I highly recommend. Okay. So what I want to say is, especially knowing that most of you are undecided yet, is that I will offer a free consultation, an absolutely no obligation consultation. I really love to serve you. Everyone at Marshall Redick loves to serve you. And I really love to serve you. And I'm happy to just talk to you about your situation, your individual situations, and help you determine if, with your whole portfolio, help you determine what's the best direction to go. But putting it off, that's the one thing that I will say pretty definitively, is putting it off doesn't solve anything. And it just adds, like, putting out more money to a bad situation. And so if you're here, the time to at least take a look at it and make some sort of determination for yourself. It seems to be up for you at this time. And so, take me up on that offer. Let me just talk to you. Let's talk together and, help you decide. Okay? So thanks so much, and I'm open for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Linda. Lots of information there. Again, if you guys have questions, please enter them into your question box and send them our direction. I have a couple that we'll go ahead and jump off with. One, and I think you may have touched on this a little bit, but just for those of us who have rental properties that we are considering these options for, what happens if it is a rental property and there is a tenant?
Yeah, that's a great question. And generally, I can actually get, if the tenant does need to relocate, I can usually get them relocation funds from the lender. I'm really glad that that got asked because I totally skipped over it. And I can generally get them relocation funds. And of course, if it's your primary residence, I can generally get you relocation funds. But if there's a tenant in there, I can get them relocation funds most of the time. It's not guaranteed, and it's generally $10,000. And so even if their lease isn't up, for the most part, the tenants will be cooperative, knowing they're going to get $10,000 to move with. Now, if in fact that isn't going to be the case, that the tenant is on a lease and is in a state where, you know, they have rights and they don't want to move, then we have to find investors to buy the property that are going to keep the tenant and keep the lease. And we've still been able to do that as well. And so it's just, you know, we just have to eliminate one option of the owner-occupied buyers and just look for investors. But we do that, and we make sure that the tenants aren't going to, I mean, we do our best to keep them happy throughout the process.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Moving right along to the next question. This one comes from Sylvia. She wants to know, how do you find out who the owner of the note is? And if the property is upside down, what are some of the criteria that might decide whether or not the bank would be willing to do a modification, a short sale, etc.?
So in terms of how you find out who owns the note, you can go on the Fannie Mae website. You know, I believe it's fanniemae.com, you know, or just do a search for Fannie Mae. And there's a little template that says, does Fannie Mae own my note? You know, or own my mortgage, and you have to plug in some things, and it'll tell you if Fannie Mae owns it. And then there's the same thing with Freddie Mac. You can go on the Freddie Mac website and do that. If it's not Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, you can certainly ask your servicer who owns your note. Sometimes they'll tell you. Sometimes you have to put it in writing. You know, generally, I mean, they can't hold back that information, but a lot of the times it's a hedge fund or some sort of conglomerate that owns it, that isn't, you know, that isn't going to state exactly who they are. But if it's Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, they should be able to tell you if you ask them, you know, or if you just want to go on the website. What the criteria are as to whether the lender is going to, say that part again?
Will the bank be willing to do a modification or short sale if the property is underwater? And what are the criteria for that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of criteria for that. And so, you know, we really have to talk about each individual situation. You know, modification, like I said, is really, really based on a person's income and hardship, and there's a very, very narrow margin as to when you can't afford your current loan, but you can afford a lower loan that's workable for the bank. And so, you know, it's really a narrow field. In terms of a short sale, most banks are willing to do a short sale. It's just a matter of whether they're willing to let you walk away free and clear. And that's part of the negotiations. And a lot of it has to do with the financial package. And like I said, what I do is I package your financials in a way that mitigates your losses. I had one client that called me that said that called me, and then they ended up going with a realtor in the area instead to save the $3,000. And then they called me 3 months later and they said, yeah, the realtor got us the short sale, but the bank wants us to come out of pocket with $35,000 at closing. He said, what should we do? You know, they were beside themselves. And I said, the only thing you can do is to not move forward with that particular offer. Tell them no, let the buyers walk, Tell the buyer, sorry, you're not willing to move forward with that offer. Give it another 3-4 months and call me back. And we have to start all over from scratch. And they did, and I was able to have them walk away free and clear without any cash contribution.
Got it. Okay. So it definitely sounds like the right step is to call Linda. And if you didn't get her information, we'll have her give it again before the presentation. And then also the very last slide is going to have my information on it. So we will give you every opportunity to be able to contact either Linda or myself, and we will get you guys connected. Also, if there was something that you missed, because I got asked, I want to let everybody know that this presentation is being recorded and the link will be posted on the website tomorrow. So you guys will be able to go back and re-watch and take notes if you missed anything so that you can be informed. Also, I have another one, and we get asked this pretty frequently, and rather than just responding to individuals, I wanted this to be part of the presentation. How long does a short sale or foreclosure affect my ability to get a loan?
Short sale is going to affect your ability to get a loan. You can get an FHA loan generally 2 to 3 years after a short sale. A conventional loan is 4 years. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, unless you have some real extenuating circumstances as to why you needed to have the short sale. Sometimes they'll make an exception with that on the FHA, or on the conventional if it was due to some extreme illness or some real exceptional conditions. But generally it's 4 years for conventional.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Linda. So I'm coming up. Sorry for the pause there. I just had another question come through here, so I wanted to look over that and see. So we have time for one more question. And I know you did touch on this just a little bit, but maybe a little bit more detail for some of our listeners. How does something like this affect your credit?
Yeah, so it is going to impact your credit. Generally, it's hard to say how much it's going to drop your FICO because, for one, you are going to not be paying your mortgage payment. So, of course, the longer that it takes, the more that's going to affect your credit. Usually we can get these done in 3 to 4 months. As long as we have a buyer, we can usually get these done within 3 to 4 months. And that's kind of another thing I wanted to say that I didn't, is that we'll keep lowering the price to get a buyer. I mean, we're not just going to let your property sit there and have no action on it. We're going to make sure we get your buyer. But if you're not paying your mortgage, that affects your credit. The short sale alone affects your credit. But if that's the only thing and you're still making your credit card payments and you don't have any other problems once the short sale is completed and you're not having like any active derogatories like that because it's like complete, so at least it's stable, and then you don't have any more derogatories after that, your credit will rebound pretty quickly. Your FICO score will rebound pretty quickly, and your ability to use credit will rebound pretty quickly. Outside of, like we just said about getting another mortgage for a bit. But the rest, the rest is it's going to rebound pretty quickly.
Perfect. And I think we have time for one more, and this definitely is going to apply to a lot of our clients and a lot of our investors. Do you service all states or just California?
That is such a great question. Thank you for asking. Yes, I service all states. And, you know, I'm a licensed realtor in California, but what we do is we get a realtor in whatever area that your property is. And like I said, sometimes we'll use your property manager's office, you know, if you like your property manager's office, and they do sales, then we'll use them. Otherwise, the network and myself has a network of realtors in different areas that we've done business with before that are used to doing teamwork with a short sale negotiator like this, and are happy to list the properties and actively get your buyer. So yeah, we do all states.
Great, thank you so much, Linda. We are about out of time here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. But again, everybody, if you have questions that we didn't get to, I promise, we will get to those questions. We will be doing some follow-up calls and emails tomorrow, so we'll make sure that we reach out to each and every one of you and make sure that you got all the information you were hoping to get this evening. Linda, if you wouldn't mind just clicking on to the very next slide here. I want everyone to have my contact information as well. Again, my name is Kristen Tabar. I am an advisor here at Marshall Redick Real Estate. I'm also a licensed California agent, so between Linda and myself, we can help you in whatever your situation is. My contact info is here. My contact number is 949-885-5162. If you call me directly, you can avoid my gatekeepers. If you happen to get one of the TCs, they will ask you who you are and what your call is regarding. So that is my direct line there, that 5162 extension. So you can call me directly. My email address is also up here, ctabar@marshallreddick.com. So please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Linda with any and all questions that you have regarding tonight's webinar, anything that didn't get answered, or if you're in the middle of a situation, like Linda mentioned, if you're in the middle of a situation and it's just not going the direction you had hoped for, give us a call and we'll see what we can do to help you get the best possible outcome. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Linda, a very special thank you for your time and your information tonight. We really appreciate you and what you do for us and our clients. Again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you.